This conference will now be recorded.
Could I get a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing related to the City of Appleton CDBG-CV grant application.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
You come up here?
Yep. Well, I suppose I should have turned the mic on.
Looks like it's on. So for the, this is the public hearing to submit a grant to deed for their Community Development Block Grant, COVID-19 grant at CDBG-CV. And so some of the things that we need to go over with the public hearing are to identify community development and housing needs. I think it's been a well-established that broadband, quality broadband is a need in the city of Appleton. The needs of LMI persons, Appleton's LMI rate, I should remember this, is 66%, which is what makes you eligible for this funding citywide. And so the proposed activities that we plan to put into this grant are two. We've got one for broadband infrastructure and the other one is commercial rehab. So I think I'll just start with broadband infrastructure and go through the activities, the implementation schedule, and the budget for that one, and then I'll do commercial rehab. So for broadband infrastructure, the plan is to ask for $3.2 million from CBDG CV funds. And then there's total leverage resources are 2.1 million. Those include resources from the selected provider, from the city, the county, and local businesses. It also includes leverage funds of things that are not eligible in the broadband infrastructure grant. The broadband infrastructure grant can only pay for residents, not any business connections. So that leverage is part of that. So for a total of $5.3 million project. The provider would be, again, we have to do an RFP process to pick the provider. So we'd be asking the provider for 1.4 million. And then some of the other, some of these are committed. The city's committed with the Appleton EDAs is 500,000. Then some of the other ones are still a little pending, but some of the other commitments. The implementation process for broadband is it's supposed to be released at the end of June. I think June 22nd is the date they've given me. So June to July. There's 32 months to complete these projects. So we would start right away with the procurement of a broadband service provider, and we would be giving in that RFP a lot of the things that we outlined in the grant application is what we would be requiring. Construction engineering would be completed by December of 21. Completion of the environmental review would be February of 22. Actually, I need to change that. Hopefully we can get it done earlier, but necessary permits would be March 22. Proposed activity start would be May of 22. The project then would be done over the summer, 75% completed by October 22, and then all construction would be done by June of 23. Let's see here. I think that's all I need to give you on that. Any questions on the broadband project?
Yeah, I guess I just have one question. Would this be buried fiber optic, or are they running overhead, or?
I think it's buried fiber, fiber to the prem, is the way I understand it. And I'm sorry, I'm not the broadband expert on this,
Right.
writing on this grant. So if I misspeak, but that's what the way I understand it is that it would be fiber to the prem, and I guess I just assume that that's buried. So
Okay.
yeah, high quality.
Right.
Yep. Any other questions on the broadband? I'll go through the commercial rehab, and then if you still have questions, we can address them. The commercial rehab, we are also doing the commercial rehab component, and that component needs to address It needs to prevent and respond to, let me see here. How did they say that? Needs to prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID-19. So we have written in the commercial rehab project to do, we heard from 12 businesses. So we plan to do HVAC systems for 12 businesses in Appleton at a cost of $25,000 per unit. So that total cost then would be $300,000 request to small cities. The commercial rehab is 13%. We asked for as much as we could. We asked for, so that's 39,000, and that admin would go to both the general admin in our office, and then we would contract with Prairie 5 to do the field administration for that project, similar to a commercial rehab, although we're hoping we can streamline it a little bit. I have talked to Willie. 13% of 25,000 is not enough to really do the admin per project on a typical commercial rehab project. Once we get this contract, we plan to meet with Prairie 5 and kind of create a plan of action for how we would try to streamline it, work with multiple businesses. Since we're only doing HVAC, we hope we can keep the admin costs lower, but we're kind of just jumping into this with a leap of faith that we can make the admin costs less, and we'll come to the city with a contract so you guys can decide, how to proceed. But that admin cost is a little bit less known than a typical commercial rehab project is $4,500 per unit. And then deed would typically give you 15% of the commercial costs, of the construction costs. So this is 25,000 and per project. And if some of the projects don't come in, if you don't use all those construction costs, then you can't get the admin costs. So that would have to come from the city. But I wanted to add that just so you guys are aware that we are thinking about it, and it's something that we're just going to have to address, but there's just no time to really dig into it right now. So we'll make sure that you guys know what your options are. So we're asking from deed for the commercial rehab portion, 339,000 total. Leverage is 75,000. That would come from business owners. If the project was over 25,000, 25,000 is the max we can ask for projects. And the timeline with this is that the award letter we would anticipate by July 1st. We would work on the environmental review right away. We may be able to do the environmental review alongside with the broadband one, so then that might change our dates a little bit. But if we can just move forward with this sooner, we could do release of funds by October, get policy approvals. We could start to process applications in December, and we could start project work even in December. So we would assume that we could do all the project work in 2022. We would make sure by the end of 22, if there was any other funds to be committed, do we need different applicants? And then we'd finalize in 23. I wrote the grant so that it's 12 businesses, or however the 12 that signed up would get priority. And then if they choose not to participate in the program, then we could go to other projects. And if some of their projects come in at less, then we could have funds at the end to do more projects. But then there's that admin piece that we just have to work through. I think that is all I needed to say on those projects. I just needed to give you the cost. Oh, and the location is the city limits of Appleton. So it's citywide for both projects, for both broadband and the commercial rehab. I need to give you the overall cost, the proposed financing, and the implementation schedule. I guess a couple of other things that I need to mention in this public hearing is past performance. Our agency, the city of Appleton, Prairie 5, has all done, implemented, and carried through large grants multiple times over the many past decades. So we're well equipped to do that. Any historical requirements, we need to talk about any historical issues that could come up. And so all of that will be addressed in the environmental review that we would have. I think that's all I have to talk about or make sure that I bring up in the public hearing. So is there any questions from council?
This whole thing came together really quick, as you mentioned, and that's no fault of anyone's. That's just the way things
Yeah,
had
it's
come
just-
out, the guidelines came out.
Yeah, it just happened. They've been talking to us about this deed they were kind of getting feedback from us last fall. They said, we have these new, CV funds. Do you have ideas? They were kind of taking like, what are the needs? What are you hearing about? I think they've got 3 rounds of funds that they had received. And the way I understood it, and is like they had these funds, they got this feedback, they kind of got their grant ready to go, and I think they were ready to send it out this winter sometime, and then they got another chunk of funds, and I think they were waiting for approvals on those funds. That's the way I kind of felt. It's like instead of rolling out this grant and then having to roll out another grant like a month later, they kind of waited. And so, but that made everything such a short, because they couldn't tell us what the grant was going to be for. They couldn't give us any information about it until it came out. And it was, and then it just takes when did we get this? March maybe? And then it was like, finding time to read it and finding time for the Q&A. And then you finally start to understand what it is by the end,
Yep.
So yeah, we've been working on it not that long. So.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Thanks for
kudos.
explaining that.
Yeah, kudos to you guys for being willing to take the risk and just going for it. I mean, who knows how many people are doing that? We have no idea what the competition is going to be for these funds. So.
And the potential reward is
Is
so
great.
great
Yeah.
for our town.
Yeah.
Yes.
And thank you guys for
Yeah.
taking this on and
Yeah.
working on it at short notice.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question though. When you're looking at this HVAC system, we got a list of 12 businesses. How did you come up with those 12?
We had a short turnaround. I went to the EDA and to the chamber for email addresses to try to get the word out to every business. And then I created an online survey for people to sign up on.
Okay.
I know we posted it on Facebook. There wasn't time to put it even really get it in I don't know if it got in the newspaper. I sent it to Leslie, but there wasn't even time to get it out as
So
widely.
at this point, is that pretty much, is that set?
No.
Okay.
No.
So if there were other businesses
Yes.
that
They
they
could-
could still come.
In fact, they should still sign up. I've got the survey link live and we just get them on the list. But the way I put it is that those businesses would get priority. But there's likely never in any grant that I've done does every business take advantage of it? There could be additional funds left over at the end. 12 businesses is a pretty large list. For example, we're only doing 12 commercial rehab. That's of course just the downtown, and
Mhm.
the interest when I was doing the grant was a little not super high. But now when the grant is coming through, there's a lot of interest, and I think those funds are going to go pretty quickly. But you just never know. So
Sure. Yep.
So yeah, I think if any business who still is interested in this should get on the list.
Right. And
Yep.
one more time, where can they find that to do this?
Is there a link on the website? Could we put the link on the website for the CV commercial rehab funds? The same link that we put on the Facebook page? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, it's still the Facebook page.
Yep.
You have to scroll down from the post, but it's still.
Still on the Facebook page, but we could put it on if you want to put it on your website, that probably would make the most sense.
Yeah, I can kind of sort of put it on the website as well.
That would be good, because I know not everybody does Facebook.
Yep.
Myself included.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Yep.
all right. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Do we have anybody online, Emma? No?
Just, I guess, a couple questions that maybe, there's 25 million for broadband activities. The top amount that each grant could ask for would be 5 million. We thought we'd be more competitive. There's a couple things. You can't do any duplication of benefits. So if they think you can find funds up somewhere else, they'll take money away. So a couple of things we needed to make sure there weren't any duplication of benefits. And then, keeping the request smaller, we thought would be more competitive. And then these funds, there was non-entitlement jurisdictions and then entitlement. They kind of had different funding sources as well. So So that's, if there's more funds for non-entitlement jurisdictions, which would be us.
I wish we had some of the public here, either virtually or in person, but.
I know it's such a fast turnaround. I mean,
Kind of, yeah.
it's very quick. And if the funds come, especially with the commercial rehab thing, we should maybe work with the EDA chamber, whoever's got a list of the businesses. I found it difficult to reach all the businesses in a short time period.
Sure.
So I don't know how to do that. I mean, we could, if everybody reads the paper, I mean, I don't know how you reach all your Appleton businesses in a short order. So that maybe is something that the EDA could work on in having like a good list to get to everybody, but maybe we hold a meeting, once we get our system figured out and, if there's questions, that would be good.
I think the chamber would be a good place to start.
Yeah, I
All
did ask.
businesses
Yeah, I did ask.
Are chamber members.
Yeah. And she doesn't keep email addresses, so I would have, sending out a letter doesn't always work either. So, yeah,
Sure.
it was a challenge
Yeah.
with such a short turnaround.
I understand. It's
Yep.
Not a lot of time.
Yeah. So, any other questions?
Good, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Christie.
That's it.
Motion to close the hearing?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to close the hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
Motion. No. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.